Alright guys, so here's part 3 of this this rod and reel video for you. We left off at the 4-power jig rod, so now we're going to move into the 5-power. This is my frogging rod, you guys. I love the hell out of this rod. I caught so many fish on this rod, and it just has so much power on it. And I pretty much almost exclusively use it for frogs. You can use it for some flipping and pitching and stuff too. And I did use it for some flipping and pitching. You can throw like the big heavy cover hooks from Gamakatsu and stuff like that on this rod. It's a 5-power. This is a 725 mag heavy, fast action, not an extra fast, but a fast action. So with this rod, you're going to see the tip of it, possibly you might be able to see it, you're going to see it bend a little bit more. It has a little bit more give in it. I think this is a 9+1, so it's got 9 guides plus the tip. So you'll actually see this thing bending around the 5th to the 6th rod, as opposed to where these ones were getting into the 6th to the 7th guide. This one's going to bend a little bit further down because it's got a fast taper. So there's a little less material up here in this section of the rod to allow it to have not such a stout tip on it, so you can walk things like frogs and stuff like that. If you choose to walk frogs, you guys know I don't walk frogs, but it just allows you a little bit more accuracy when you're casting and stuff like that, instead of having just a straight broomstick that doesn't move at all. There's a lot of benefits to having a little bit more give in the tip. But when you're fishing with a frog like this Copper's Live Target 65T, it's essentially got 2 5/0 heavy cover extra wide gap hooks on it, and you really need a lot of power to drive that in. So we're using on this particular rod, I'm using 50-pound braid. You can use 25 or 20-25-pound monofilament on it as well. But a lot of different techniques as far as for heavy cover situations that you can use. And this is pretty much like my summertime rod. When everything kind of dies down in the wintertime, when the weeds aren't around anymore, they're not feeding on the top anymore, and I'm not going to catch a 3-pound bass with 6 pounds of salad, this rod pretty much gets put away for the winter. But it's just a fantastic rod for fishing in heavy cover. There you go, you guys can see that action again. This has actually got the Revo SX. It's the only SX that I have. This is the Revo SX, and a fantastic casting reel, meaning that I can cast a long ways. You guys watch some of my frog videos. I've had plenty of comments on people asking what reel is that. It seems to cast a long way. It's a Revo SX, and they don't make them the same anymore. Believe me, the Gen 3s they're not like the Gen 2s. This is a Gen 2. So, but I really enjoy this setup, and it's one of my favorite rods out of all of my combos that I have. I'll go ahead and I'm going to put some rods or some reels on those rods over there, so hang on one second. Alright guys, so continuing on, we just talked about the frog rod, so I just put the 3 reels on those rods that don't have reels on them, so I can show you guys the actions of them. Now the first one I'm going to talk about is the 755 CB glass comp. It's a 7'5" medium heavy moderate fast action. I alluded to this rod a little bit earlier already as being my deep diving crankbait rod, like for Norman DD22s, DT16s, DT20s, flat D20s from Lucky Craft. I don't know if I said Norman DD22s already, but those really deep diving crankbait plugs that weigh about 3/4 of an ounce, 5/8, 3/4, all the way up to 1 ounce. This is the rod that I would choose to use for those techniques. You can also use this rod for some lipless crankbaits. It's got that extra length, so it's going to take up a lot of line every time that you move it. So by taking up a lot of line, it allows you to rip it out of things pretty effectively. So if you want to take up that much line, it's a great lipless crankbait rod, and it's also great for deep diving crankbaits. Some people like to throw their deep diving crankbaits, like the ultra deep ones, like the 6XDs and stuff like that, on 8-foot rods, like 7'11", 8-foot. Personally, again, it's just a personal preference of mine. I like 7.5-foot rods for that. This is a 7'5". I wish it would have been like a 7'6" or even a 7'7", but it is what it is. So, and it's pretty much an identical rod to the 705 CB. It's got the same backbone on it. It's just a little bit lengthier, so you can get better casts on it for those deep diving crankbaits. but you can also take up line on it because it's got the extra length, so you can take up a lot of line when you're swinging it for those lipless crankbaits and stuff like that. So you'll see that it has that same soft tip on it with that slow taper that goes down to about the 4th guide. I believe this is a 9+1, so it's bending from the 4th, I mean, actually getting close to the 3rd guide. So about 3rd, 4th, 5th guide from the bottom there, all the way up to the tip. So really soft, kind of parabolic. Not so parabolic like some of the 724, but still more parabolic as in comparison to like the worm and jig style rods. So got a really soft tip on there, will allow you to fight those fish, but enough power to set those bigger hooks into the fish, like from the Norman DD22s. As you guys know, those usually come with like size 2s. Some even come with size 1s. And those hooks can get pretty beefy, so you're going to need a little bit of hook setting power. Tighten down the drag a little bit and get a good swing on that fish when you want to set those hooks, especially when they're down deep. When they're down in 15, 20 feet of water and they're 100 feet away from you, you really need some good hook setting power on those rods. So moving on, and again, I don't throw a lot of deep diving crankbaits, and I choose to throw my lipless crankbaits on the 705. So when I'm going out to a place like Shasta that warrants throwing a deep diving plug, and I know I'm going to throw a DD22 that day, that's when I'll take the reel off of that one and I'll throw it on there. I would like to have another reel for it, but I just really don't need one. I haven't got to the place where it's been a necessity for me to buy another reel for that rod, because normally when I use that rod, I'm not using this rod. So that's kind of the way it's been for me. So, and then moving forward, this is a 764M fast. This is a 7'6" medium fast action. Let me say it again. It's 7'6" medium fast action. So this is a medium, but it's a 4 power. So you guys ask why? Why is that a 4 power when it's a medium? Well, it's a medium in a flipping stick. So when you move up into these like 7.5 foot rods, they start getting into a more flipping stick rating to them. So so it is a fast action, so it's going to bend a little bit further down than some of the extra fast actions on the worm and jig rods, but still not quite as far as even the 755 over there. This is a 9+1, so you can see it's bending around the 5th, even the 6th guide on the rod there. So it's a little slower than the extra fast, but it's still very sensitive, and it's still got enough tip there to be a sensitive rod, and allow you the hook setting power that you need when you're throwing things like I bought this rod for throwing football head jigs. Football head jigs at Shasta. When you're fishing in 60 feet of water, you need to take up a lot of line, and you need to take it up in a hurry to set the hooks on those fish. So a lengthy rod like this fits the bill on that perfect. Carolina rigs, perfect, because Carolina rigs, what are you doing? You're launching that rig out there a long way, so you got a lot of length on this to get the distance on a Carolina rig, and you can also take up a lot of line on a hook set. When you go and you set the hook, it's going to take up a lot of line, take up all the slack out of there, and penetrate the hook point past the barb on that fish, which is what you want when you are fishing at a distance, like with Carolina rigs. You guys have seen me throw this for like the big 11-inch worms and stuff like that. It's not necessary if you're throwing them out there a long distance, but normally I'm not throwing the big 11-inch worms in super deep water. In places that have super deep water, I'm usually throwing a jig. That's just being a product of my environment. In other parts of the country, it might differ for you guys. A really sweet rod. Doesn't get a ton of use by me, but when it does, it's really nice to have it. Again, it's a technique specific rod. I could use it for jigs and stuff like that. It becomes a little bit cumbersome because of the length when you're fishing in close quarters and stuff like that. So that's why I opt a lot for the 714. It kind of has the action's a little bit different on the 714. It's got a lot more tip on the 714, but it's got the same backbone. They're both 4 power. So, but just a really outstanding rod there. It's a fun rod to have, and I was very excited when I bought it because it's nice to have that rod when you need it for those really particular situations. And then the last one that I have here is the 775 MH X Fast. This is a 7'7" medium heavy extra fast action. You guys that have been following me on Facebook know that this is a brand new rod for me. This is a flipping stick, and I put the frogging reel on there for now. It's going to have 65-pound braid, maybe even possibly 80-pound braid. I forgot to mention this earlier. This is 50-pound braid on here right now from the frogging rod, and this is 50-pound Moss Green Power Pro, I think is what it is. It's Power Pro. I think it's Moss Green though. But this is the beefiest rod that I have. It is it's rated all the way up to 1.5 ounces, but you could probably get away with even flipping some weights even heavier than that. So extra fast action on it. This is a 9+1 again, and you'll see that it's bending around the 5th, maybe even the 6th guide there. But it's got so much tip, it doesn't even really allow you to bend the tip that much. With the amount of pressure that I was putting on all the other rods, that same amount of pressure is not allowing it to bend. And that's just being a product of something that when you are throwing into super heavy cover and you want to get that fish out of there, you need all the power that you can get. It's not going to be a very good casting rod. Because it doesn't have a lot of bend in the tip. It's not going to allow you to rocket launch those baits out there, because what will end up happening is those things will just go straight down in front of you when you try to cast a lure with this rod. You can get away with it, but that's not what the rod was intended for. That's not what this rod was made for. So very excited to fish with this rod. To fish my idea is that I'll be fishing out there with the frogs, and then when the frog bite shuts off, I'm going to be fishing with this and just flipping and pitching instead of some of those heavy matted vegetations that are out there, like those big weed mats and stuff right there on the edge, fishing the weed lines and stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So a couple things that I left out. This reel on the 724 here, this is a Lose speed spool. It's the cheaper one. To be honest with you guys, I'm not very impressed with the reel. It casts good, but it just feels like a cheap reel. It was $100, and I'm just not that impressed with it. It does the job fine. I haven't had any issues with it, so I shouldn't have any complaints. It just feels cheap. So so that's that one there. I just forgot to mention that to you guys. Also, I want to mention to you guys, if you guys have any questions about any of the rods or rods in general, I've studied a lot about rods, and I like to think that I know a little bit about them. And so if you guys ever have any questions about some of this stuff, I'd be more than happy to answer you guys. You can find me on Facebook. You can send me a personal message, write a comment below the video, what have you. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. So the only rod that I don't have, and the only baits that I cannot throw are the big swim baits in the mag top waters, which is something that I'm hoping to get here fairly soon. But there's a couple other things that I'd like to get. I'm thinking about getting another spinning rod. I mentioned to you guys earlier about the 722 here, a rod that Powell makes that would be good in place of this casting rod for shaky heads. They have a 6103 spinning rod, and that's actually a rod that I'm thinking about getting. 6103 spinning rod to throw some of your shaky heads. I wish it was 7 foot. That kind of just fits into my whole ideology about having all 7 foot and above rods. But 6103 seems like a pretty awesome rod, and it goes from a 2 power from this medium light to a 3 power medium in a spinning. So it'll be a 3 power spinning, but it should take the place rather nicely of my 2 power casting rod. I'm thinking about getting it. I'm still not sure. And then the swim bait rod. So that's kind of what I have stored in the future. But to be honest with you guys, you subtract these 3 rods here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rods right there. That will allow you to fish damn near every bait for bass fishing that you can find. So Again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Please like the video if you guys like it, and share it with your friends if you feel like it was useful to you. Thanks a lot, guys, and take care.